latest federal budget was unveiled yesterday. We already know Canadians will soon be paying more for things like transit passes and Uber rides, but plenty of other changes are also tucked away in all that paperwork. So joining me to shed some light on the finer details is BNN's Jameson Berkow. Jameson, we're still in deficit. No plan necessarily to get out of deficit. What does that mean?
It really just means we're going to have to find a new way to raise new revenue. And that was really the big fear, certainly on Bay Street, Ben, was that, it's so important to look at what didn't change in this budget from the investor perspective, right? They kept that inclusion rate for capital gains at 50%. So what that means is the rate you were paying for taxes on any gains you might have made from investments last year, it's the same rate you're going to be paying this year. And that certainty, while it is really good for investors, it does create a real bind for the government to figure out how they're going to bring their coffers up. Because one thing we noticed in that budget, there isn't really a lot of mechanisms for new money to be coming into the federal coffers. They said they're going to, tighten up the tax collection process, and that's supposed to get, I think, $2.5 billion over the next several years. But that's pennies when you're talking about the federal budget.
Well, you said a bind. It's very interesting because last year's budget was I believe a columnist said, last year's budget was written at a time of Barack Obama. This one is written at a time of Donald Trump. Two completely different worlds that this government has to navigate. A lot of Canadians are worried about sort of a perceived competitive imbalance that's coming because of American, perhaps, tax changes that are going to happen. Have we done anything to address that?
Nothing whatsoever, in fact, Ben. And I actually had a chance a couple of months ago to ask Bill Morneau, our finance minister, supposedly the chief financial officer of this whole country, whether or not there's a plan in place. He basically didn't answer the question for 3 minutes. And as you can see, the budget document, it's 270 some odd pages that also doesn't really address the possibility of a border adjustment tax, of potential competitive losses if we see, corporate taxes and personal income taxes in the U.S. start to fall. And that's going to be a real challenge for us in the long term, especially because you talk about last year's budget compared to this one, there was a $6 billion cushion built into last year's budget to deal with, maybe we'll have some more uncertainty than we can plan for, but not so much this time. And Bill Morneau, we actually spoke to him last night. He challenged our audience directly, saying, look at the unemployment rate, look at things that have happened since we've taken office. Our plan is working. We're going to be stress testing that throughout the day today.
All right, very, very exciting. Thanks so much for being on top of this. And you can follow the story as it develops on BNN.